I think it will be, because I think this has been a very different way for us to work as well. Both Nara and I have worked not just as artists at home. So we often are working in an office the whole day, and then we work together at night or on the weekends. So this has been a very dedicated time, and I think it's changed the way we work a little bit, and the way we kind of respond to each other in terms of the information we've been gathering. But I think we've also just learned a lot about our own perspectives on other people, and our own assumptions about how things work. And we've certainly learned a lot about French history in the process. Yeah, so I expect it'll be very different, yeah, when we get back.
I think also we've learned a lot about the work we have already made. So trying to explain that to a different audience in a different context forces you to look at like the relevance of that work in that context and its meaning in your own context. So that's been fruitful, and yeah.
And we presented some work at the school in Nantes last week, which was a very interesting experience for us, just in terms of language barrier, but also in terms of like a contextual difficulty of like what it means to try and present work that is, because our work is very much based in the context of Johannesburg, what it means to try and present that work to some people who don't understand where we come from or what Johannesburg is. And I think in some ways we struggle a little bit with the kind of exoticism of trying to talk about a completely different place. And we've had to kind of ask ourselves questions about what it means to be in a completely different place, where people have, in the same way that we had assumptions about France, people will have assumptions about South Africa. And how do you work in this kind of space of complete misunderstanding of each other and where we come from, and make that a kind of real experience. And I don't think it's an experience, I don't think it means that we have to understand each other. I don't think that's really possible in the time. But what are the strategies to undertake to try and find some way of communicating with each other without exoticizing, or I don't know. Sometimes it just felt like the things we were saying were going
completely foreign to people.
Yeah, completely foreign to people, and it was almost like, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to say when we talk about our work to a group of students who don't connect to? Yeah, it was a very interesting experience, and we got some very great questions from the students, really challenging some of our own work, which was great. And I think it was a very useful experience to be in a kind of, not just a foreign place, but a foreign way of thinking. It helps us to really question ourselves and why we do some of the things we do. I think one of the things that was great about the questions was we realized that there are certain ideas that are, I don't want to say universal, but there are certain ideas that are interesting to us and to them. And that, in fact, sometimes it's more interesting to discuss ideas or concepts than to discuss the work. That's something we've been discussing since that presentation, that sometimes trying to describe the place and the history and all this detail just makes us feel more far away from each other, and that they're like conceptual interests that we can share with people that don't necessarily, describing our works to everyone all the time doesn't necessarily help.
Yeah, I mean, because our work is so contextually grounded in South Africa, so the lecturer tried to do a quick 5-minute history of South Africa in order to kind of better place our work, but again, trying to cramp a whole nation's history in like 5 minutes is just ludicrous, so I think a lot of the stuff we were saying was completely lost in them because, again, they didn't have any contextual, basis for the work.
But we could still connect on a questioning of certain kinds of ideas, challenging certain institutions. I think some of the basis of why we work, we could connect to the students with, which was interesting for us to learn. And I think it'll change the way we think about presenting our work in future and things like that.